I am so fired up. I just call this guy the gangster. I would say it's rare that I've talked to a newer LO that has climbed as fast as you've climbed, Alex Dykes, in the weirdest of markets. And so I'm really pumped to unpack and uncover your story of how you've grown from an LOA to a branch leader running multiple states, who has grown from 2023 only working with, how many agents did you say? It was like 19 agents in 2023? And
it was low.
It was 19. In 2024, you worked with 67, meaning you closed deals with 67 different agents. This is a guy who grew his business 250% in 1 year. And I'm just so excited to unpack how you did that. What is your mindset? How did you become a rainmaker? And then just how you function on a daily basis, Alex. I'm so honored to have you. Alex works with me at Guild Mortgage. You live in between Roanoke, Virginia. I just found out in preparation for this that you have a farm there.
Yes, we do.
I just thought you wanted to have a little country, like a little cabin, a little lake house. I didn't know it was a farm, and you have this big vision for the farm. What are you guys going to do with it?
You know what the funniest thing is my whole, I grew up in the DC metro, and my whole life, I wanted to move into a bigger city, right? I wanted to be in New York. I wanted to be in San Francisco, somewhere even bigger. And then I met my husband, and life has a funny way of showing you where you actually should be. So we have a house in the city in Roanoke. And then a couple of years after that, we bought his family property that's actually been in his family since 1820 in Bedford County, Virginia, 226 acre farm that is basically defunct. It has an old log cabin on it that is completely in disrepair. We bid off this huge project and are pushing to make it an eco resort. So we're going to rebuild the log cabin, restore that and the family history associated with it. And then we've carved out 5 additional sites to do kind of glamping tiny homes on it. We're also doing a reforestation project. So we just planted with the Virginia Department of Conservation 8,900 trees to reforest the old farmland that we're going to carve out hiking trails in. So it's really cool. It's a cool project. It is not fast or cheap in any means of anything, but it's a really cool passion project.
I just don't even know where you have time, because I see the way you've grown your business in the last 12 months. And we met exactly a year ago. You had joined Guild back in mid 2022, and I had an expansion opportunity in the DC area and brought Carrie Scholl and 3 loan officers to Guild. She's an old friend and just a mega producer. And we were like, oh man, we need someone to help onboard. Like, these guys are cooking and they have all these loans. And I swear, just an angel dropped in my lap named Alex Dykes, because it was like, oh, well, there's this guy, Alex, and he'd be more than happy to help these guys. And I mean, within a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it was like, this has got to be the coolest, most legit dude I've ever met. And we need to somehow be working together. And so here we are a year later. And Alex, you've gone from being a loan officer assistant only 1 year, which is a short period of time to learn this business. So 2018, you're an LOA for 1 year for a really productive, core coached, great loan officer, but still 1 year. And then you say, I want the big bucks. I'm going to be an LO. And your first year as an LO, I love that you shared you made $26,000. So many people, I think, are second guessing themselves and going, what am I doing? But you earned $325,000 last year. So let's talk about some nice growth. But you went from 22 to 86 to 140 units in 2021, then down to 106, and then 58 in 2023. And so let's talk about this growth from 58 units to 118, getting your mojo back. More importantly, finding that many new referral partners. Like, what was your mindset going into 2024? How did you make that happen?
Well, I think to get into that mindset, we have to go back a little bit into 2022, right? Because that's when I moved to Guild, and moved because I felt like I was hitting a glass ceiling, and I felt like I was plateauing into I'm basically, I invested in educating myself about this business for a year, working with a team. And then I basically was like, well, I can do this. I can do it better. And I went out and guess what? The market helped me do it better because it was great. Little did I know that's not the way that it always is. So I learned a really valuable lesson in that, oh, wait, I actually have to invest in myself. I actually have to take opportunities to educate myself and learn from mentors and get signed up with coaching and actually be involved in what it means to be a real loan officer through all markets, right? So I think one of the biggest things I did right out of the gate is get involved in coaching. And it hurt because, I mean, I went from making good money to crap money. We have this farm that's over here looming over my head and this monthly payment for it that I signed up for when the times were good. But there was a lot of motivation to figure out what I needed to do next so that I wasn't a failure, because that's just not who I am. I'm the type of person that's going to dig in and figure it out and get scrappy. So, I got professional coaching and then I set systems up, and little did I know, man, when the market was good, was just throwing spaghetti at the wall, and thankfully some stuff was sticking. I had no systems. I was doing everything myself. I had no support. And I, hired a loan officer assistant. I got follow-up systems in place. I got buyer's consultation systems in place, and figured out what it actually was to be a professional loan officer. I think the thing that was the biggest changer is that I went from maybe working 22, 23 hours a week, feeling super depressed about all of it, thinking I was going to have to leave the business, and then realizing like I have to treat this as a job. Like I am punching a clock and somebody is watching me and kicking my ass, or this just is never going to work.
It's so funny. I just got off with Brandy Marshall. You probably know Brandy. She's been at Guild for 19 years. She did 58 million in volume. Our closing line on this podcast episode was treat it like a 9-to-5 job. And then you just said the same thing. So when you hear two people in a row say the same thing, you go, that's the ticket. It just is freaking work. Go to work. So I want to unpack a little bit more about being a real LO, because now you've seen lots of different versions. You worked on one team, you worked at Intercoastal, small company, then they merged with a big bank and you saw all these other loan officers. Then you came to Guild, and then you got into Elevate coaching and you're getting exposed to different LOs. Now you're leading loan officers, and you've got 10 loan officers that you're leading as you've been growing over the last year as both a branch manager and a producing manager. How do you define a real LO? Not just working 9-to-5, but how do they behave? How do they think? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think real LOs are hungry first and foremost, right? I think that there are so many people that are such good loan officers, but they're lazy. And they don't show up to the office. They don't show up and do the work. They don't time block, and they don't hold themselves accountable to actually making the calls and doing the basic stuff that just works, right? Like the equation to do $20 million a year in business is really not that hard. And it's actually not really even probably a 40-hour work week in most cases. But I think so many people are so disorganized and then get distracted by, oh, my friends are in town and it's a Wednesday and I want to go off and do this other thing instead. You can't do that, right? So the days of just being able to show up and be likable and treat your clients right are gone. You actually have to show up and do the work simultaneously. And then you also have to be somebody that's actually an advisor, right? I think that when I first got in the business, I was so hyper-focused on providing the easiest and best customer service experience that I wasn't in the mindset of going, well, wait a minute. Am I really actually doing anything different than Rocket Mortgage? And the answer was no, I wasn't. I wasn't doing face-to-face meetings with clients. I wasn't holding buyer's consultations. I wasn't actually playing an advisorship role and telling people my interest is actually your homeownership journey for the rest of your life. I want to make sure that this is a symbiotic relationship in all of your financial goals forever, not just this one transaction. And I was treating everything transactionally because I was hungry for the paycheck.
Yep.
So, I think a good loan officer is somebody that is actually taking the time to care about the people they're talking to, because ultimately we are people. We work with people. That's it, right? Like we do all this other cool stuff, but ultimately we are here to serve people.
So show up and do the work, be an advisor. Anything else to being a real LO?
Education, man, you've got to change and you've got to be adaptable. I think one of the things that kicked my butt is because I was pretty much flying by the seat of my pants and making it up as I went. I had never taken the time to actually invest in my business, because if you are a real loan officer, you are first and foremost an entrepreneur. And actually, you say this all the time, and you're an entrepreneur with an amazing company if you have the alignment of somebody, a company that has your back. And you have to treat your business as that. Like, you are the CEO of a business. And if you're not taking care of not just the follow up, but also the education and the putting the work into your business, right? And taking the time to also time block actually working on your business, then you're just not going to go anywhere, because you're not going to adapt to the market and you're not going to learn.
So I'm wondering about assimilating yourself. When you got here in August of 2022, you had called the company, you had said, hey, I think Guild is pretty cool. I want to come on board to Guild. So I call that like a fish who jumps in the boat. It's really rare. I'm wondering, did you immediately seek out coaching and seek out mentors and get really connected to all your regional team? Or is that something that evolved over time? What's your mindset around that?
I think my mindset around that is just I'm a big believer in collaboration. And I feel like if we are all going to be successful in this business, we need to help and support each other. And so I pretty much, when I got involved, started right out of the gate, just treating ops people like they're real people and actually wanting to close business instead of I have the ego and you're going to do this now, right? Which is often the case. So I just started getting a lot of yeses and a lot of traction and a lot of support that I think, some of my peers may not even be getting, because I'm treating people like professionals in a job where we all have the same roles. So that kind of naturally progressed into getting signed up with coaching in January. So I joined Guild in August, and I had started asking the questions about coaching. I knew Guild had this program, but then I actually took the leap into it in January, and then have been involved with it ever since.
And you've now just been promoted to be an Elevate coach, sir.
I have. It's super exciting, because now I get to give back to people in the same way that people poured into me, which feels so good. And talk about accountability. There is nothing more accountable than having to show up and coach people, because that is the thing that is now looming over my head as I get ready to take my first group in a couple of months, where I'm like, shit, I can't be a fraud. I got to show up in an even bigger way than I have before.
Who has been your favorite coach, and what did you learn from them?
Oh my gosh, there has been so many amazing people. And all the cool thing about the program is everybody brings a different, unique perspective, right? And, Elevate gives the leash to the coaches to be able to run it the way they want to, which I think is unlike a lot of other coaching programs. But I'd say Liddell White is probably the person who has been most fundamental in the business, right? She's probably the person who actually looked at my business and was like, no, you're not doing this right. In direct feedback that I needed to hear, that was tactical and no, you need to build time blocks around this. You need to show up and do it. Turn your phone off and don't get distracted, holding me accountable to the field work and the homework, all of that. Right. But I think coming into the program, Joe Petit was my original coach, and he changed my mindset around what this business can be in a way that I would have never been able to accomplish what I have without getting my mind right first, because I was so desperate after a bad year and these bills that I had racked up that I needed to pay, that I wasn't being genuine. I wasn't being myself. And that was showing towards clients and towards referral partners, because I was so desperate for the next deal. I wasn't focused on the fact that if I'm pouring out the positive energy and I'm pouring into people, that will just automatically return what I was looking for. And he helped me see that, which then kind of led me to be able to do the work on the actual business.
Yeah. I talk about this a lot, that you got to get your vibe right, and that we are human beings, not human doings. So everybody wants to ask, what's the script? What's the time block? What's the shortcut? I'm like, yeah, but I just spent the last 10 minutes on the phone with you, and I'm not feeling that passion, that energy, that love in your voice. So if you called me to go to coffee with me right now, you're not getting me. And so I'm really happy that Joe had the courage and the love to say to you, dude, get your mind right.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what the funniest thing is, and probably the biggest indicator after I first got in that first semester, is my husband, who hears me make our intro call over and over again, to the point where he could probably do it. He's heard it so many times. But I think he actually made a comment a couple months after I got involved with coaching that was like, man, you are so much better at this now. Like you sounded so robotic, like you were just trying to rush people off the phone because all you cared about was the paycheck. And now you're like actually taking time to get to know people and build relationships and care about them. And that he's like, I am just a complete nobody in this business. But I think that like if I was your client, I would be yes, hell yes, I want to work with this person, right? So that was such a big kick in the ass that I needed, really, like, because I think that I was like, oh yeah, this hot shit that it built my business fast and I was doing great things, and then come to find out I wasn't anything,
Yeah.
because I wasn't doing it right.
I've been talking about this whole concept of Act One and Act Two, and that, I look at the success that was built in our industry from 2012 to 2021. And it was a 10-year run and it was amazing. And it was, like you said, money was falling out of the sky. I could show up and be charming, throw some noodles at the wall and get paid well. And rates essentially for 10 years went down and down and down and down and down. And home values went up and up and up and up. And relatively, we had enough inventory. That was a 10-year run. And then 2022 and 2023 happened. And we all got shook. We got rocked. It's like a tidal wave kept hitting us and we're trying to surf and, our board is getting thrashed. And it was a real wake up call. I still don't think, even with a wake up call, that people have the rebound that you've had. And so I want to talk about, you first go to Roanoke, and we talked about this before the show started, that you were kind of a disruptor. Like you brought big city tactics and mentality into a small town, and you were able to gain market share quickly. So let's first talk about what that is. How did you shake up the small town of Roanoke and gain traction in the beginning?
It's a great question. I think that, I only knew one way of doing business, right? Because for a year, I'd worked on a team that was very successful and was core coached, and it was very core coached. I mean, like you name it, they were doing all of it.
I coached her.
Yeah, right. And then I went to Roanoke, and I did one thing right and one thing really wrong. I moved from DC to a town of 300,000 people. It's actually, it's a small city. It's wonderful. Anybody should visit it. It's amazing. It's in the mountains. But I word vomited everything DC. Oh, we do it this way there. They're so good at this. Why aren't people doing it this way? Oh, why is the sales contract closing date on or about instead of firmly on? That gives people too much leash, blah, blah, blah. And I had this like, man, I was so stupid. I don't know why I did it, but man, I just like didn't do a good job at actually assimilating into the culture. But the one thing that I did do really well is showed people that I will show up and work for you on Sunday night. I will send a pre-approval letter from bed. I will show up for you and do a pre-approval in 2 hours. I'll return your phone calls within 30 minutes. I'll send you a text if I'm unavailable. I'll be wildly communicative. And I'm not a banker. I don't work Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. And it's not even 9 to 5. It's like 9 to 4. If you miss them, good luck. You might hear from them on Monday. And so when I started working with agents there and also learned the reality that I was now living in a market that I needed to learn the lifestyle and the culture. And I started doing that and forming really deep relationships with people. Not only did it change the traction in my business, but it also changed my life. Like I was so much happier because I was doing things in a different way, and it wasn't so cutthroat like the DC market. When I was having conversations with clients, suddenly I was always going into those conversations with all they're going to care about is rate. These people are going to shop me to death. They're going to go to anybody and everybody they can because all they want is that eighth better rate, right? People in Roanoke were showing up and they were like, tell me about the process. Nobody asked what's the interest rate. Nobody started that with that conversation. They wanted to know, how do I buy a house? And so it was such a pleasure to work with a clientele whose mission was homeownership, right? And it changed me as a person because it changed my focus away, once again, kind of from that desperation acting, I just need the deal, to actually moving towards that advisorship role. And honestly, I think that the market is one piece that ruined my business in 2023. But like the other thing was that it was me, because, oh, by the way, I went from being this like caring, compassionate, all in person to complete desperation mode. And it just was it's like a, never ending cycle.
Ooh, that's a good litmus test as you're listening to this podcast of going, where am I at? Am I in desperation mode or am I in abundance? Am I in caring and listening and not flinching? Because I think when we're in desperation, just one little hint, like we're waiting for the shoe to drop. We are waiting for them to say they're shopping us or talking to other people, almost to the point that we are manifesting that because we're not listening to all the other cues. Because what I would say, I don't care what market you're in, humans are still humans. And we really want connection and we are scared and we have fears and we're confused. Now, whether or not people show up with their ego fully locked in and have a mask because they just got off of, Capitol Hill and they're very important. And so they ask questions that they think they're supposed to ask. Like what's behind all that is still a human being who's nervous and scared and wants to really trust somebody that they're going to be their advocate and have their back and not rip them off and be honest and all those other things. I think it's just how firmly intact the ego is based on the culture. And so I love that you got to experience both sides of yourself, Alex, and you got to go back and remember quickly in coaching, like, oh yeah, what really worked for me is when I dropped this desperation and I got into service. You're back a lot in DC. Yes, you're still going back and forth, but you run a team up in Arlington, which is right outside of the Capitol. Do you treat your clients in DC differently after having the Roanoke experience?
I treat everybody the same at this point. Everybody is exactly the same. And it's actually kind of edifying because I recently won a deal competing against a private lending bank. And my interest rate was 0.5% higher and they worked with me because they liked me.
Yep.
And that was the moment where I'm like, it's funny how where life takes you, right? Because if I hadn't have made that leap into the Roanoke market and, made those amazing connections with the amazing people there and worked with amazing clients, I would have never learned the self-value that I needed to actually carry me through this business, because ultimately my confidence is driven by the fact that my goal is to help people. You and I have talked about this in the past, but I think you mentioned that my income compared to my units was on the low side for a loan officer, but my goal has never been the money. My goal has been to actually drive units into helping people get into and achieve home ownership, whether they're in DC or Roanoke or Florida or wherever, right? And I think a lot of that was driven by the fact that my husband grew up I grew up a very privileged life. I have none of this happened, but my husband grew up in Section 8 housing in a very impoverished situation in Roanoke. And Roanoke is a market that actually still has a 25% poverty line.
Wow.
So when I moved there and when I started interacting with people and getting to know the community, I think that one of the drivers for me was taking people, and probably one of the reasons I had a lot of instant success was because people would call this. I always say I would never wanted to be this loan officer, the grumpy 60-year-old white man with a beer belly sitting behind a desk in his 9-to-4 job, who heard bad credit or $80,000 trailer or whatever and instantly said, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Yep.
I dug my heels in and I helped every single one of those people. And I have so many clients that I've worked with that have achieved homeownership in those circumstances because there's so many possibilities, right? That put me in the mindset of this is what I'm doing is bigger than a paycheck. And that's the piece that I now remember after getting my mindset right and is driving me to future success.
Thank you for saying that. And I realize how much COVID really screwed us all up because we were disconnected from people. We were relegated to how fast we could respond. We had more than we could handle. We were stuck behind a computer screen and indoors a lot. So we lost disconnection from ourselves and disconnection from the fulfilling part of really helping people. But, I've been doing this business since 2004. So I'm coming up on my 21st year. And I would say before the craziness of 2019 to 21, that was always how it is. You get your confidence and your passion from really, really helping people and from figuring out any possible way to get somebody into a home. And all leads are good leads. And, you do the right thing and the money will follow. And then COVID kind of turned us all transactional. And our egos got inflated as well, because now we were like, well, I'm a loan officer that closes X and this is, blah, blah, blah. So I think the adjustment period for people has been different based on how entrenched they bought into the story and the comfortability or discomfort of COVID. But I want to talk about yours specifically. So we're a year ago, you're starting in 2024. You have already shifted your mindset. Liddell's helped you go, you're not being a real LO. You don't have time blocks. You're not calling people. You're not working this like a job in a business and taking it seriously and being an entrepreneur. And you start putting those groundworks in place in 2023. And I want to note that because a lot of people could say, well, this year was a failure. I only closed 58 deals. My business fell in half. But had you not had 2023, Alex, and had you not spent a semester in coaching, getting your head out of your ass and remembering who you are and why you love what you do, and counting the small victories, like, okay, I'm making progress. And then another semester of like dialing in your personal organization and system so that you aren't stuck with distraction. And what was the other D word you said? Disorganization and distraction. You wouldn't have been ready for 24 and the explosion that you had because you grew by 250%. You went from 15 million, right? Just share 39, almost $40 million. And you went from 19 agents to 67. So you built the foundation. Then how the hell did you go get that many more referral partners? What was your behavior, your prospecting that changed so drastically in 24?
I think it comes down to being the organized, like, right. And actually treating it like a job and actually remembering that I'm hungry and I want to be successful, right? Like at one point, I would like to be able to be so successful that I get to do some of the cool stuff that you get to do on a daily basis, right? Like interviewing people, right? Like that kind of stuff is fun and getting to know people and helping people also achieve this amazing thing, right? So thank you again for everything that you do because it's always amazing to be a part of your world. But I think that the thing that I've always had to remind myself is that any new relationship in this business takes a year to nurture. I don't know why it's always 12 months, but every single time I've done it, it's always a year. So when I was putting those foundational building blocks in place in 2023, I had to keep telling myself like, okay, I'm doing this for the future. I'm doing this for future Alex, right? Like, and I just had to stay consistent because there is so many times that you go 4, 5, 6 weeks of making 50, 60 outbound phone calls a week. And you are just exhausted because there is no immediate gratification in this business. And I had to keep digging into coaching and leaning on the people that were mentoring me and coaching me to remind myself constantly that like, if I take my foot off the gas, this will all crumble. And because I kept with it consistently, it all paid off in spades. And now it's the opposite problem, right? I've got 52 leads month to date, and it's February 19th. All referral, none paid, all organic referrals, which I'm super proud of. It's always been something I've been really, really focused on in my business. But now I'm also like, do I really need to show up and make those phone calls today? I'm in New Orleans right now. I have friends down from New York, but I've been sitting at a coffee shop, making my calls and getting my ass working every single day because I know if I take my foot off that gas for 1 second, it will all crumble because you're only as good as the work that you do every single day.
Well, I appreciate that that's where your mindset is, but I would also tell you that there's another level for that. And it is systems and it is leverage. And you're just starting to touch that. I was going to start out this call saying, tell me about leverage, Alex, because what you may or may not realize is you are a genius of leverage. You and I have levered together and we've figured out how to grow and recruit together, right? And we've gone, I think you went to 5 conferences in the last year and you're out there leveraging other people's wisdom and their energy and you're bringing your team with you to conferences. You're leveraging coaching through everything that you can gain from it, but you're also leveraging coaching to increase your authority and your leadership and your ability to recruit because now you can say, yeah, I'm a professional, elevate coach. That makes it easier for you to lead and guide your team. You leverage operations really well. And it's not leverage over. It's not leverage by taking advantage of. It's being intelligent and saying, look at all the assets I have available to myself and how do I leverage these assets? And then furthermore, I think you're really strategic in your opportunities. And you partnered with Carrie Scholl and her 3 loan officers, and she has a huge network. And you're really thinking, how do I exploit and take advantage and grow and seize this opportunity, even if it means I'm flying to Florida a couple times a year because there's an expansion team in Florida. So in terms of your mindset, if I can't ever take my foot off the gas, I promise you, your team will get to the point where it's not just you 100% responsible for making it rain, because it's really the truth. But I never take my foot off the gas, but it's in different ways. I'm not in a coffee shop making calls. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. But, I think it's also experience based too, right? Because I feel so excited where I am right now that I'm at the point where I did 118 units. Now this year, my big goal is 180. Yeah. I want to hit that. But I have a goal that by President's Club trip in April, which I'm super grateful to be a part of, I will be able to close my laptop, and I've hired a second loan officer assistant, and they will be able to handle the business while I am in Nevis, because it's probably been many people in this business. It's probably been 2 years since I've had a legit day off where I did nothing mortgage related. And I'm ready. I'm ready to do that for my husband. I'm ready to do that for myself. And I'm now focused on that because I think that I'm at this weird point where I'm finding the balance between I want a cool life and I want to be a badass loan officer. How do those work? It is possible to make it work together. But I'm at a point now that I've just got to keep digging until I get that done so that I have that system set up.
Yeah. Well, you're trusting now in your ability to make it rain and to convert business. And that's the first step. And you've now done this for a long enough and enough stints that you go, I'm Alex Dykes and I can do that. I am a freaking rainmaker. I can make it rain, right? Now you've gone into this team building and setting up your systems and processes around your team. And there'll be a whole nother rainbow of trust you've got to build, not only just in your team, but trust within your partners and your team. And, you'll at some point go from Michael Jordan, who's the one always dunking the ball, to becoming the Bulls, which is the team who, as a team, won championships, not just Michael by himself, who never passed the ball because he was, probably afraid to do that quite yet. So I'm really excited about your journey, and you do things quickly, Alex, and you care so much about people. I don't even know how busy you are, because every time I call you, you're always there, and you always make me feel like I'm the only person on your day. I've never felt like, oh, Alex is in a rush to get off the phone, or I'm bothering him or anything. And I just have to honor you for that, because it feels amazing to be your friend, to be your partner. And I know you give that kind of love all over the place.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you implemented 3 different things in the last year that you thought were important for this growth. Not only building the foundation, but continuing to prospect and meet a ton of agents. The first thing you mentioned was improving your buyer consult. So let's talk about what that looks like and how you did it.
Yeah. So kudos to Jason Jacobs for actually finally kicking me in the ass to actually get it done, because I had Bojangle in this for 9 months and labored over it. And I was honestly just being lazy. I was trying to steal everyone else's and never made it mine. So actually, when I finally got done with it, I felt really good about it. I was on the plane back from one of your events in Reno, and I spent the plane ride building out this buyer's consultation. And the thing that finally clicked for me is that by using other people's tools and trying to riff off of them, it wasn't me showing up in my authentic way. So I wasn't excited about any of it. I wasn't actually excited to show up on the call and talk to people about it. So when I finally did the work, it obviously provided all of that back. But I rebuilt it so that it was, one, a lot more time invested with every single client. It is an hour on Zoom. And it takes an hour, sometimes an hour and 10 minutes if there's a lot of questions or good conversation happening. I don't rush people off the phone. That hour is dedicated to every single client, whether they're buying a $45,000 house or $1 million house. It doesn't matter to me. And the other thing that I did that was so different was I treated it like a way to edify the agent and build the agent relationship deeper, but also to try to talk people off the fence. So the whole idea about it is to get people away from interest rates. I talk about it once when we talk about a candlestick chart and talk about how volatile the market is. And oh, by the way, the interest rate I'm basing these numbers off of might as well be fake because you're not buying a house today. But oh my God, this payment is exactly where you wanted it. How exciting, right? And then we talk about how to win offers in a competitive market. And we go through building all of the knowledge so that when they go back to their agent, they are actually knowledgeable and ready for the conversation about making an offer on a home. It takes work off the agent's plate and it gets them off the fence because now it's not scary. They know exactly what they're getting into. So the whole process became about that, right? Like, how do I, number one, get people off the fence? Because I have 96 buyers pre-approved right now. Like, even if I could convert a quarter of those, that would be fantastic. But I was sitting there and I'm like, man, why are all these people? Why is nobody buying? Oh, well, it's because you go on the news and everybody's like, it's a terrible time to buy. Interest rates are horrible, right?
Yep.
So we have to be the people that show up and change that narrative. And so that's what the whole system was designed to do. And it's working. I've been using it for like 3 months. I've made some minor iterations. And it's amazing. Like I have a full cancellation guarantee. So I tell people we are your team, but if we misstep for some reason, you can cancel with us up until the day of closing. And even if we've accrued cost on your behalf, we will pay for it. I have 2 things that I show them about giving back, right? So I partnered with Sackcloth and Ashes for my closing gift. And I talk about that in the buyer's consultation and why it's meaningful to me. And then I also provide them the option to pick between 2 nonprofits, the Trevor Project or the Wounded Warrior Project, for every deal, I'm donating $150 of my commission to one of those nonprofits, and they're the ones picking it in the buyer's consultation. And then I make sure they know that that's being made on their behalf after closing. It's just small touch points to try to make it fun because financing is boring, right? Totally. So it's a way to get people engaged again.
I got to ask, have you now leveraged this to the agents? Do they know this is what you're doing, why you're doing it? The whole narrative that you're crafting, the strategy between the order of how you're doing it?
Yeah, 100%. I took especially, started with my, number one referral partners, showed them the presentation, got them on Zoom, talked them through it, talked about the strategy. And then I'm actually inviting every single agent to actually jump on the call with us and be a part of the full conversation. And then if some do want to do this, the ways to win an offer page, which is literally all those strategies, that is for them to present if they want to. So they are actually part of the process financially. I think the number one thing I've learned this year as far as how to work with real estate agents is I always feel like it used to be a fishbowl, right? Agents at the top, they get all the best food, all of the premium stuff, right? Lenders are somewhere maybe in the middle, like taking the scraps. And then you have other people throughout the process that are at the bottom trying to feed off all the leftovers. I think people that are just using that old school way of doing things are going to fail because the market is different. Post NAR settlement, we all need to be working in a circular manner to support each other. And I don't feel like the industry has ever, the way that I was at least taught the industry and have seen it work, I don't think that people think that way.
I'm so happy that you're talking about this. And I think now with the NAR lawsuit more than ever, we have this opportunity because agents are having to say, I need you to commit to me on a piece of paper that I'm your agent. And they have this opportunity to really craft an experience for the client. Whereas before, they, of course, wouldn't say, will you commit to me? They were running around doing all these things to try to earn it. But now there's like real conversations having to be had. And there's an opportunity to have a real process dialed in with a real partner that bounces off of each other. I'm so happy that you're presenting it to your agents and they see it that way. I think that we need to let agents know that the reason people aren't buying is because of fear and overwhelm, and that we are salespeople. Yes, we need to technically know how to do loans and know how to do them well and close them on time and close them smooth. But if you're partnering with a loan officer, you better have a strategic sales partner in that loan officer. Otherwise, like, you're risking your commission every time. Is that person going to really aid you in passing the ball for you to then dunk it? Right. So fantastic. I'm so proud of you for doing that after the November Slay event. That's freaking awesome.
You know what? And let me add one more thing to that. Sorry. One of the things that I think a lot of loan officers don't understand is the average real estate agent spends $2,000 per lead on a closed transaction by the time they get the lead until it actually closes. And that is per lead, not just per closed lead. So think about the thousands of dollars they're shelling out on stuff that never closes. Shame on us for not doing a better job at conversion for them. Like if they're trusting us with that, that is money out of their pocket, and we need to show up and do better.
Thank you. 9 hours of weekly calls to get your 60 talk tos. When are you doing it? How are you doing it?
Twice a day. So normal 5 days of prospecting calls, right? Like your status updates, your VIP calls, all the old school stuff. In addition to that, 4 days a week, I hold myself accountable to do a 1 hour call that is for my daily discipline calls, which leads into kind of that third bullet point, and gold calls only. So I take the 20 to, maybe about 20 minutes ish to do my daily discipline calls, use the systems I have in place to do all my follow-ups, get applications, get documents, check in on pre-approvals, all of that stuff. And then I use the rest of the time to do nothing but gold calls. So trying to book appointments for myself, either via Zoom or in person.
You called it wild approval follow-up. What is that?
Making sure, maybe it's just wild to me because it wasn't something I was doing. But I think, for me, it's just about actually showing up and making sure that you are available whenever you issue that pre-approval, because the buyer's consultation is not going to be the only thing that's the key to the puzzle of getting people off the fence. I'm calling people all the time and just saying, hey, did you see this article? Hey, did you see what rates did last week? Hey, have you heard this, right? I'm trying to engage people in the actual being a homeowner, right? I'm trying to change their mindset, right? Like from pre-approval onward until they get into a home about, you're not a renter anymore. Stop thinking that way. Like, stop throwing your money out of a car window and actually get off the fence and buy, right? So it's just little touch points, but it's not, I've gotten completely away from doing the, hey, I'm just following up and seeing how everything's going. How's the home search?
Yeah. This is fantastic. If you were to talk to that 35-year-old, got 2 young kids, managing and juggling a lot, they've maybe been in the business 5 years, maybe they've been in the business 2 years, maybe they've been in for 12, but they're just feeling like they're down, they're defeated, they're in maybe that stinky mindset we were talking about. What is your tip to help them change their momentum and succeed right now in 2025?
Figure out your why. And I know you hear people say this all the time, but figure out why you're showing up to do the work every single day, because it's actually going to give you the passion back to go out and do the work that you need to do to get business in the door. If you don't know your why, or if you're just doing it out of desperation, I think it's the same thing, honestly. I think that you're not showing up in an abundant way that actually gives that back into the world that then returns to you. Just hard stop. That's it. Figure out why you're showing up.
You said it earlier when you said, I gain my confidence because it's about helping people. And I think that's it, is that when we feel good and we feel confident, we have swagger and we just show up and do the work and we are advising people, as you said, as your number 2, and we're continually improving, success is guaranteed. It's imminent. It's just, you can't control the timing. It's build the foundation, trust the process, never take your foot off the gas. So many nuggets here, Alex. I did a little journaling about what is a rainmaker. And just one part of the component is a rainmaker means you are harnessing your strengths and God-given talents. You are wielding your energy and focus. You are creating leverage and providing value to others. You're creating abundance and opportunity for others. And you're having fun in what you do. Alex, I'm assuming you're having fun. Are we having fun?
I'm loving it every moment.
You are a certified rainmaker. I have no doubt that you'll hit 180 units. You are going to continue to grow the team. I'm so happy to partner together. And I will hold you accountable to that true vacation with Mark at the Four Seasons in Nevis. And I'm so excited. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah. Thanks, Shayla. It's always a pleasure.